Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're glad you're here. Welcome to Guthrie High School. My name is Mike Simpson. I'm superintendent of schools. It's a long-standing tradition in politics and in education that they come together when the candidate forums are around. And that's why I wanted to offer the high school tonight for this forum. We're glad you're here. A couple of housekeeping items. First of all, if you need to use the restroom, around the corner. And we have other restrooms in the building, but I don't think you want to go to one that hasn't been cleaned by our custodial staff yet today. Unless you have teenagers at home, you don't understand that. I'm proud tonight to introduce our substitute moderator, and that's one of the reasons that we're getting a little bit of a late start. But Price Purvis has agreed to step in as moderator, and he will conduct the candidate forum and go over the rules. And if you have cards where you have other questions, please give them to the table. Thank you.
Good evening. I apologize for being late. We'll go over the rules real quick. We're going to give each candidate a 2-minute opening. I believe the questions will be, you'll allow 2 minutes to answer the questions that are presented. We have paddles that have 1 minute and then 30 seconds, and then I believe you're going to get the cut. So let's introduce the candidates real quick. I'm going to read the list, and then we'll just start at my right and just go on down to introduce yourself. For mayor, we have Steve Gentling, and we have Trey Ayers. Trey Ayers is the current city council member. For Ward 1, we have Ed Wood. He's running unopposed but has agreed to join in this event. We have Ward 2, Brian Bothroyd, and Clarice Rendau. She is the current city council member. Ward 3, we have Grant Aguirre and Cheryl Paget, and she is the current city council member. So, Ms. Paget, would you? Just a 2-minute introduction about yourself and whatever you wish to.
Okay. My name is Cheryl Paget. I reside in Ward 3. I was born here and raised here. I raised my children here, and I have 2 children, 5 grandchildren. I'm currently employed as a senior accountant with Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma City. Any questions?
I am Grant Aguirre, and I am a 1992 graduate of Guthrie High School, a proud Blue Jay, and I was the city councilman for Ward 3 from 1999 and vice mayor to 2003. I hold the PhD in marketing degree from the New Mexico State University and a Juris Doctorate from Oklahoma City University. I'm employed by the University of Central Oklahoma as an assistant professor of marketing in the College of Business. I'm running for city council tonight and in this race because I believe that we face some critical challenges over the next few years in terms of development and growth in our community. And I think I offer a unique perspective on that in that I have worked with businesses. I've been an executive vice president for a publicly traded company. So I know what they look like, and I know how they work and what they're looking for when they move to a community. And I have contacts with the Votex and can bring development to Guthrie. And so that's why I'm running. I think it's a unique challenge. I think we need to really focus on our growth. And I look forward to taking your questions this evening.
Me?
Yes, sir.
I'm Brian Bothroyd. I've been in Guthrie a little bit over 20 years. I'm currently an executive vice president and officer of a 32-year-old telecommunications company and president and owner of a international company named Councll. I've got my wife Sandy, who we've been married 25 years, here with me, my daughter Carly, and actually my sister-in-law Linda, showing their support. Some of the things that I want to take a look at and hope the questions come this way is, on the economic development side and our growth just in general. We all are, a lot of us are property holders, and at the end of the day, we want to see our values increase and increase and increase. In my case, I plan on retiring here. After 21 years, we're not going anywhere. I plan on hoping to leave the daughters a dowry. Here you go. And so, you know, I've looked at the past growth that we've had and where we've gone and where we've come since I've lived here. And it's just time to step up. And so that's my plan. My plan is to step up for everybody in the room, including my family and us as a community and as a family. Because at the end of the day, whether we win or lose this election, we're part of this Guthrie family, and as everybody in this room is. And so that's why I'm running. I'm running to foster growth and make a big, big difference in this community. And hope the questions come. My opponent? Oh. Yes, it's yours, Ed.
My name is Ed Wood. I am running the enviable place of unopposed in Ward 1 to the rest of the panel up here, I'm sure. My wife, Teresa, who is here tonight, 25 years, we moved back to Oklahoma and moved to Guthrie. Uh-oh, are we just not quite there? Is that it? Gotcha. Thank you. 13 years ago, we purchased a building downtown. We ran a business there. We've since moved to a home in Ward 1 and have just loved Guthrie. We enjoy this community. We want to retire here too. We want our property values to go up as I want everybody's to. I love the quality of life here, and I think that we really can and have an opportunity to make Guthrie a much thriving community. I look forward to sitting on the council and to helping and making Guthrie a better place, and look forward to being your council person. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Gentling, and I have a passion for Guthrie. Here's what you get in Steve Gentling. I have a 20-year, very successful career in managing and leading a very complex hospital organization of $260 million and 2,000 employees. You get 26 years of experience carrying the Army and the Air Force uniform, retired as a colonel. You get somebody who is passionate over the last 10 years. We've lived in Guthrie for 17 years. Since I retired from those previous mentioned jobs, my passion has been Guthrie. I have been engaged in our community through chairing the 89ers Committee for the last 5 years. For the last 6 years, the United Way of Logan County. I have been involved with the Lions Club. I'm the chairman of the Hospital Advisory Board, and I am just embracing Guthrie. One of the things that I would like to do, I would like to enhance the trust that the citizens have in our government, in our city government, and I think you do that by getting out and talking, and most importantly, listening. Those of you that remember the Frasier TV sitcom, you know, and it's going to be Steve Gentling, I'm listening. And that's how I think you develop the trust. You get out, just as I've been doing for the last few weeks, knocking on doors, listening to what people say, and then taking that back to our government. Transparency is another mechanism, another value that I have for enhancing that trust. And I would like to be your full-time mayor, involved with enhancing the trust and increasing
Mr. Gentling,
growth
we've hit 2 minutes.
in our community.
Sorry.
It goes by fast, I know. I do. Well, thanks, Steve. And for those of you, I look across the room and I know almost every face out here. But I'm Trey Ayers. I'm running for mayor again, for second time around. Currently served on the council for 8 years. 2 years prior to that, the Planning Commission. I've been in the community for the last 12 years, A little bit about me, if you don't know, most of you probably do, but the folks that don't know, I'm Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer for a company called the Dominion Group here in Guthrie. We're located right here in Guthrie. Also probably know the Dominion House. It's a little bit easier one to recognize. Again, I do want to take 5 seconds of my time to thank each and one of these candidates that are sitting up here tonight, because they're doing exactly what needs to happen in this community, is to step up and volunteer for this position. And I think it's wonderful that we have these public forums and we have this opportunity, not just myself, but Steve and Brian and Grant and Cheryl to be here tonight. I think it's important to know as we call on the community to help us develop what we want the community to be, to hear from you, to step up and play these roles, and I think it's most important. I know Steve touched a little bit about his passion for Guthrie. I share that same passion. I've got 2 daughters I'm raising in this town, 13 and 11. That's a tough age. You guys know, you've had them. So being a full-time father, working, devoting my life to the city has been, since I moved into this community, that's been important to me. And I share the same passion as Steve and every other person that sits up here tonight. So thank you for listening to me tonight. And I look forward to the questions as we move forward through the evening and just sharing a little bit about each one of our perspectives. So thank you.
All right. These questions have been presented. Do we have any more that we need to turn in? In no particular order, I've actually randomized them while I've been up here. First question, what quality do you have that you believe will make you the best to serve our city? And why don't we just start from my right and go down?
Well, I didn't realize how much the first question really involved what we are, what we do, where we've been. I also have a master's degree in leadership and organization development, and I believe that I carry forward that into the city. I can lead. I am not a political person. I believe in leadership, not politics. I have a huge passion for the city of Guthrie. I have a passion for the history of Guthrie, and even more, I have a passion for the future and what we can do. I think economic development is an extremely big part of what we can do and what we need to do, and that will carry us forward. It'll give our children and grandchildren the future that they deserve. I believe that that's what I need to do.
I think what I bring to the council, if I were elected, is the ability to analyze things in great detail and to work with partners outside the community to bring organizations into the community that will bring dollars and revenue in terms of businesses. For example, I have a contact with the Community Housing Development Organization in Oklahoma City. It's called a CHODO at Positively Paseo, and I know how to get those kinds of grant dollars and bring those into the city. When I served on the council previously, Councilman Morelli, who's sitting in the audience today, and I worked to get grants that we identified from being on the ACOG board for trails and for community development in our town. We built a fire station, did trails in our parks, and did a runway extension at the airport, all without increasing cost to our taxpayers. And so I think that's what I would focus on, is being fiscally responsible and providing a solid fiscal foundation for growth and development in our community.
And that's exactly what we need, by the way. We need people on this council that are going to be able to take the last 20, 30 years of their experience and assist this town in moving forward in a fast-track format. And that's what I plan on doing. I've got roughly 30 years of managing managers, of inspecting what I expect. If I get on this council, the council will be tired of hearing me say, I inspect what I expect, because I truly do. And that goes to budgets, that goes to contract negotiation, that goes in any type of negotiations. But I think my biggest strength is I am a true leader in management. And I know cities can't be run as a business, but there's a lot of opportunity for the council to run like a business and to really get down and inspect what they expect in every facet of our community. Growth, prosperity, economic development, contract negotiation. I've already been through a lot of the contracts, and I'm looking at it going, well, why was this left here, or why is that left here? You can always look at that and say, well, I wouldn't have done that. But I'll show you that I won't at the end of the day. Contracts, we don't have to pay full dollar. Okay, there are things that can be negotiated. I'll point to the water meters. We won't get into that detail. Maybe that question will come up. But I am a keen, hardcore negotiator when it comes right down to it. And I think that that's what this town's ready for. And so, vote Brian, April 7th.
Thank you.
Having run several successful businesses and then retiring from them and then moving here to Guthrie, I've been sitting on and have sat on several boards. I presently chair the Historic Preservation Commission. I sit on the Planning Commission and have sat on several other boards and commissions around town. I feel it gives me a unique insight to how Guthrie is working, and sitting at City Hall and on these boards and commissions, I understand now how city government operates and have a better understanding of what needs to happen. I feel that moving on into the council position, it gives me a better idea and gives us all a better chance to be able to work for the people and make Guthrie a better place, bring Guthrie into the future, bring business, knowing how to bring business in, as Mr. Brothroyd said, being able to manage and fast track us to have some economic development here in town to help with our infrastructure, with our different fire and police and all of that, to make it a better place and make it, and also our schools, to help do that, to bring our property values up, to help our schools. I really feel that that would be a big plus for Guthrie, and that is really what's going to put us all on the map.
What qualities? I've already touched on my leadership skills and history of success in that previous part of my journey, and my focus on communication, especially listening. I would say a couple other qualities that I think are pretty important. I'm high energy. I'm pretty active around the community, pretty active in any organization that I've been involved with. I am a very optimistic person. I am definitely a half-full person. I see what the opportunity is, and I see what relationships we need to build and what teams we need to build to move to that vision, to make that happen. Relationships are hugely important in everything that we do in life. I think that's one of the skills that I think I possess, being able to bring people together with a common vision, a common focus, organize them, and then get them activated towards that activity. So high energy, a vision, optimistic, leadership, communication, full-time. That's Steve Gentling, before my time ran out.
You got a minute?
I might add, if you haven't seen Steve and his wife walking, he is truly high energy when he's walking. So if you haven't seen that, they are definitely out there moving. What does Trey Ayers bring? You know, it's a great question. I bring 10 years of experience with the city, 2 years on the Planning Commission, 8 years on the City Council. Out of that 8 years, 6 years serving as the vice mayor. I think that's important. Those are important things that the community needs to know. I have understanding of the city government as well as private business. That's what I do. I'm in the private world. And how you coordinate between dealing in leadership in your private business and dealing in leadership in a community role like this, and dealing with government on a municipal level. I tell everybody, the purest form of government, if you want to know what it is, come up here and be a city council person. When your constituent is exactly 10 feet away from you, upset because their trash didn't get picked up, that's really dealing with issues. And that's what we do on the municipal level a lot of times. And so being able to deal with that one common issue all the way up to the multiple issues that we have to deal with, i.e. water treatment plants, water sewage treatment plants that are on the horizon. There's lots of things that are going to need that leadership as we move forward, financially and personally, as we deal with them as a community. I bring that leadership. I've brought that leadership. I'm excited to hopefully honor and keep doing that leadership for this community. I think everyone up here has the same heart for Guthrie. I have that heart as well, and I look forward to serving as well. I'll drop my name one more time, Trey Ayers, if you didn't hear it. Thank you.
All right, and we're going to switch things up and start with Mr. Ayers on this question and work our way back. Is there anything that can be cut to the or some of the money, to get the or some of the money we need for schools?
Is there anything from the city's perspective that can be cut?
I believe that's what the question's asking.
The city, I want to make sure that everybody's clear. City government and school funds are completely different. The school funds are addressed from ad valorem tax. The city money or revenue generated from sales tax and utilities. So the answer, can the city cut anything that would help benefit the school, the answer is no. Is there a way that we can publicly support the school? I think absolutely yes. We continue to throw our support behind the schools. We looked at one time partnering with the school district on how can we increase tax to help them offset costs, but to cut anything, I'm not certain that I would be in favor of cutting services for the city of Guthrie. For the school, I think the school has their own road to take and the city has its own.
Yeah, I think, as Trey said, it's different pots of money, different opportunities. I think the city does have an opportunity to assertively support the bond issue. I think that the school system of any community is one of the most important of the three legs of the stool that the community lives on, as far as I'm concerned. Education, school system is one of those legs. The fire and safety of the citizenry is another one. And the third one is the fire protection that we all need. And I'm sorry, and healthcare. I think those are the three things. Safety, healthcare, education is probably the most significant one of those. As we want to attract individuals and businesses to our community, we need to have solid legs of that stool. So while the city can't have a direct impact, as Trey has identified, I think clearly, indirectly, I would definitely support and be very vocal about supporting the school bond issue.
And reiterating what both gentlemen have just said, the city does not have a way to give monies to the school system, that is through the taxes. But as has been mentioned, it is very imperative that we pass a bond for our city schools. It is imperative that our schools are receiving money and improve, and through both education, both buildings, by teachers, by everything. Our community will only grow bigger if we have good schools. If we don't have schools, people will tend to move away, and our city then tends to wither. The more people, the more sales tax we generate through sales in town from all sorts of shopping. That in turn then starts to snowball, and we get bigger and better, and that's what we're looking for. So it all starts through our schools and through education, and I truly feel that I would fully support, and we all should really fully support, a bond issue, this next bond issue that's coming up for the schools. At that time, partnering with the schools, as has been mentioned, would be fine if we can, but as far as monies, that's totally separate entities of money. So, but bond issue is something we need to pass.
Yeah, I think we all realize that school and city are separate. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's just the way it is. One of the biggest things that I want to make sure that happens, and I want to answer the question because there's one thing that can be cut. It might not be worded that way, but the school bond needs to pass. We need to bring rooftops into the community. 30 years ago, I used to hunt in Edmond, and that's what that was. That was a community that had rooftops in there, didn't have big schools. They drove to Oklahoma City, passed a bond, built multiple schools. All of a sudden, the rooftops came, tax revenues came. It turned into a city. It's not a sleepy little town anymore. The one thing, you know, we had a question on the ballot about 5 months ago or so with the school bond and a tax, and it didn't pass, neither one. So the one thing the city can cut is talking about a tax when we're trying to pass a school bond. That needs to stop. We need to get out there and we need to focus on a school bond. If we need a tax increase, I'll look at that. Grant will look at that. The other people whoever ends up on the council will look at that. This isn't an emergency situation where we have to slam a tax in on April 7th, for example. Okay? It's not. And so that's the thing they can cut, talking about a tax, and let the school bond stand on its own.
Thank you. Can I ask, Price, if you'd start at this end again so that I have the opportunity to speak first and not repeat what everybody else has said? So if you start with me, then I won't have to repeat what Brian and everybody else has said. I'm a lawyer, and so I recognize that we have two distinct governmental entities with regard to the schools and the city. And so the school board is elected independently of the city, and those kinds of issues are independent. Brian is correct. They are, in the voters' minds, though, often intertwined. If you raise a tax for the schools, you know, there's only so much tax revenue that voters are going to approve. And so I think you can work with your other elected officials and your other governmental bodies to coordinate and ensure that the needs of everybody are taken care of and are acknowledged, so that you're not robbing Peter, so to speak, to pay Paul. And I think that is critical in terms of timing of issues and putting those kinds of issues before the voter and thinking about those kinds of issues. So I think that is critically imperative. And I think we need to work with the school district. Obviously, what everybody else said, education is foundational in bringing economic development. I mean, there are three things, and I know this when we were looking at the company that I worked at moving, and we were looking at communities to move to. It was, is there a good quality of education? Is there a good quality of life that we can offer our employees if we move there? And then the tax structure and things like that. And so I agree that we need to have some coordination and some communication across governmental entities with other local governments, and I think that's the key, is looking out and talking and communicating, and also focusing on what our citizens will support, and getting a feel for that. And I
Mr.
think
Gary, your time is...
Thank you.
Okay, to reiterate the question, I'm going to save you all from that. We do need schools, and we, the people, need to support our schools. We need to be aggressive in that support. We will not have a future if we don't have schools. Our children will not have an education that they need. We will not be able to compete. So that being said, I think all of the candidates have made good points. Back to the question, what can we cut from the city? We cannot cut anything, but we can support the bond issue, and I feel like we all, as citizens of Guthrie, should do that.
All right, we're going to start back on this side for
Thank
this
you.
question.
No, that's not fair. Okay, I'll take the challenge.
What are your thoughts on a MAPS-type project, as Oklahoma City had, to create funds to jumpstart Guthrie?
Oh, that's a question I've not really thought about before. I would question that we're ready to do something like that. We have basic safety issues that need to be addressed. The police and fire department have inadequate equipment. And those desperately need to be addressed before we do anything in the area of maps. I think that we need to be aware of what we need here in town, just the safety issues, the quality of life issues, the service issues. Once we've addressed that and have allowed economic development to build it, they will come. Where we have more tax dollars, then I think that perhaps we should look at something like that, but not at this time.
I think that we need to focus on what we can do with the resources that we have. And again, I think that looking to develop infrastructure and do MAPS types projects, there are ways that you can do that with grants, community development block grants and things like that that will bring money into the city and that are feasible. I would question whether or not, I mean, ultimately, the voters would support that kind of thing. I think you would have to do a lot of education and a lot of campaigning to get them to support that. But I certainly support, improving the quality of lives, because again, that is one of the things that will lead to economic development. When companies look at whether or not they can relocate to a community, it is the kinds of amenities that the community does offer. And so I think we can work on that. And I think there are ways to get at the same thing, but I'm not sure that a tax increase would be the way to go.
Well, and we are working on something like that with the GAP. Something similar, not we, but there's a meeting that was held which brought up the half-cent tax increase, which, I don't know if we need a tax increase or if we don't need a tax increase today. I haven't delved in and dug down deep into the budgetary side of the city to look at where all the money is, where it's not. When people leave and are not replaced, where that money's going. And I know this isn't really answering your question, but I think that we need to take a good hard look at as a community in what we need and what we're going to tolerate and what we need for quality of life. There's talk about sidewalks. Do we need sidewalks? Yeah, we need sidewalks. There's an issue with that, as my wife and I saw one day driving down the road with a lady pushing her baby or in a cart that almost got hit, And so, yeah, there's issues with that type of thing in our quality of life. But I think that any type of communication that we have regarding a MAPS type scenario needs to be open. Everybody needs to have insight and input and information. Everybody in this room needs to know everything that I know and everything that everybody else on this council needs to know in that type of scenario. And then the whole community rallies together and puts forth an effort to pass a tax if that's what it comes down to. But this way, through being informed, being heard, and actually truly having a voice, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about in a little bit, I think that this community can make a decision on which direction we need to go. Whether it's a MAPS type, whether it's a tax, whether it's bonds, whether it's grants or automatic, we ought to be all over the grants. I think that we can fund a ladder truck right now out of the coffers. Just from what I see and not having 100% access to everything, it looks like we can. Why we're not? We're looking at...
Mr. Bothroyd, your time.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
A MAPS-type project in Guthrie right now is probably not a feasible idea to go with. Maybe in the future sometime that may be something once we, as said before, once we have our quality of life and different things that we have brought up to speed. To reiterate, our education. Once we have our education system here in Guthrie to a point where people are wanting to come and live here in Guthrie, will bring businesses, and that will bring tax revenue. That will start the ball rolling to a point that once we have enough people in town to be able to support such, say, a tax increase for a MAPS project, then maybe, but that would be many years, I feel, down the road. Right now, as it was said before, we need our infrastructure, we need our fire and safety, the police force, we need our utilities and all of that fixed and up to speed so we can support and handle the influx of hopefully people that come if we have an education system that will support them. So I feel that that is probably not going to be an idea that we could use right now as a MAPS project. So.
Well, as Ed has identified, we've got a lot of things on our plate. We've got a lot of needs in our community, infrastructure, bringing in new businesses, go on and on and on. But the question about whether I think a MAPS type initiative could go over here, let's just say mini-map. I know that there was a group of citizens put together, the Guthrie area project, I think, Trey, that have had input into the present city government and council about what might be the outcomes of the sales tax, things to do with the sales tax. You know, I think the key to MAPS, whether it's in Oklahoma City or whether it's in Guthrie, America, is to get everybody on the same page, as Brian was talking about. We need to get the civic organizations, the Rotary, the Kiwanis, the Lions. We need to get the council involved. We need to get the Chamber of Commerce involved. We need to get city government all on the same page with the same vision and the same steps. Now, we don't have to do $16 million or whatever that a larger city can do. But what we need to do is have a strategic plan that we can all embrace and move forward with, and cut off it in bite-sized pieces. We may not be able to do the whole thing, but if we have priorities that we all agree on, then I believe that we can move forward. And we can accomplish at the same, not at the same level, but at the same degree that Oklahoma City, very, very successful MAPS. Mini MAPS for Guthrie, I think, could be a really good thing if we get all the parties together, including the citizenry, talk about it, agree on priorities, do it.
I think I want to make just a clear distinction between an Oklahoma City MAPS project and a Guthrie area project that's been discussed here tonight. Just so everybody knows, Oklahoma City is a bit bigger than Guthrie. And so they recognize that a 1 cent sales tax in Oklahoma City makes an enormous impact in dollar value for what's happening. We have, to be quite honest, we have a lot of champagne taste, including myself, on a beer budget, if you will. And a half-cent sales tax program on a Guthrie area project is not going to put the impact into the community like everybody's anticipating a MAPS project, because we've seen how successful MAPS is. We've been to Bricktown, we've walked those streets, and we've seen the success of it. With that being said, we do need to do something, though, in order to be able to fund programs or fund projects. Case in point, I know Brian brought up the ladder truck, which is a situation where he claims that we have $1 million in the coffers. We have a stabilization fund that I established when I came on. Prior to my coming on to the city council, there was no rainy day fund for the city of Guthrie. If the city of Guthrie got themselves in a pinch, there was no funds to get themselves out. It was imperative that we put together a stabilization fund. Every council member agreed to that, and so we've done that. We've kept that in reserve, so when those big items do come along, we have to make a cognitive decision as a council. Do we use up all of those funds in order to pay for a ladder truck? And then we're done. So there are issues, and these are complicated issues. They're not easy. I agree. We need the citizens to have input, and we need to have everyone's involvement. But understand that a MAPS project is not the same as a GAPS project. I think that's important to understand. Thank you.
But let's be clear real quick. I didn't say use the $1 million coffer.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that wasn't even on my mind.
All right, we'll start down at the other end on this one. I've been told to switch it back and forth. Sorry, Grant.
Kill the moderator.
Mr. Ayers, will you begin on this one? Will your current employment interfere with your duties for this position?
Yeah, that's a wonderful job that everybody loves to pin me on. Let me put this out here right now. I do 4 trips internationally a year That's in my schedule that I try to utilize. One of the questions comes, do we want a guy who's retired? Steve's a wonderful guy. We both have a heart for Guthrie, like I've said before. I do 4 trips internationally. That's usually my schedule. That can increase, that can decrease. But I want to say this as regards to whether my travel schedule and I'm here and I can do the job. The point of this is that leadership doesn't start by judging barbecue sandwiches, okay? Leadership happens behind the scenes. Leadership occurs when no one's looking and doing the day-to-day hard things. And I bring that leadership to this council. I bring this leadership to this town. I think it's important whether we're in a pretty modern age. I've got Skype and I have a phone that rings even in Kenya, Africa, just so everyone knows. And I'm always in constant contact, even when I'm not in contact. And so I think it's important that I am fully qualified to do this job. I'm fully committed to it 110%, and I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to move forward. We've been blessed, let's be honest. We've been blessed with some wonderful mayors here in the past that have been retired. And I honor each and every one of those guys. John Gummerson and Chuck Bircher are some of the two most wonderful men that I've had the opportunity of spending time with. And that's a road that, in their retirement, they've had that luxury to do. At the end of the day, I've said this, and I won't be shy about it. I have 2 young daughters, and if it's a basketball game with my kids, it's family first. And that's just how let's just call it, my girls like to say that's how I roll. That's how I roll. So I can do this job, I will do this job, and I will be committed 110% like I said. Thank you.
My personal situation as being retired, and as I have identified a couple different times, is my intent, as I do now, basically, you can ask Sue, my wife, of soon to be 47 years at the end of this month. It's full-time Guthrie. And I'm out there hearing what people in Guthrie have to say. I'm out there in the community organizations that I've already identified, understanding what they can do for Guthrie and the people that live in Guthrie. I am fully committed. And that's just because of my personal situation. I can do that. I can spend that time doing that. And I think it is important, whether it's a bean supper or whether it's a great meal at the Dominion House, I think it's important to be there, to be engaged, to be accessible, to have somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, I think we've got a problem here, or I think this is a good direction that we're going. That accessibility in me is face-to-face, and that's what you get from Steve Gentleman.
Well, I too am retired, and sitting on council is a little different than would be possibly being mayor. But I still too will give myself to the city at 100% time. I want to give as much as I can. My wife and I do go out of town from time to time, but we are here mostly, and I am able to being retired, to study the issues that are presented to the commission and to the council, to study the contracts and budgets and things that will come before the council in more depth than, say, somebody possibly that is working all the time. I'm sure they will give 100% too. But at least I have the luxury of being able to not have to divide my time between other things like that. So I feel that I have a good understanding and a good opportunity to help Guthrie and look at the hard issues and come to the council with good ideas and suggestions.
I'm not retired, but I'm fortunate in that with my tenure with our company and with our own company, I'm able to work out of a home office. And I've booked my own travel. I make my own schedule. If I don't want to go, I don't go. Or if I need to be here, I'm here. The commitment I'm making to everybody in this community, and I mean everybody in this community, is I will give, and I've had this talk with my wife and my family, I will give 4 times, I promise you, the amount of time that anybody on this council currently gives. in time, in dedication to you as a community, to everybody. Doesn't even have to be in my ward. We don't make decisions based on a ward. We make decisions for the community. And that's what I'll do. I will immerse myself. I don't do anything halfway. I'm 100% type A personality, and that's just the way I am. It's kind of what you see is what you get. I will give it all, and that's just a guarantee.
I'll bless you with a extraordinarily short answer to the question. No, my job will not interfere with my ability to serve on council. Thank you.
Biggest applause of the night. We hear you.
Well, I have been on the council for 2 years, and during that 2 years, I have never refused to take a committee position or do something that I was asked to do for the council. No matter what my work schedule was, I've taken days off work in order to be available for the council work. I have put in 8 years with First Capital Neighborhood Solutions. I've made almost every meeting. I spent 5 years on the Planning Commission. I doubt that I missed a meeting, and I don't intend to start now. I'm not retired, but Guthrie is a passion that I've held for a very, very long time, and I really have found satisfaction in being able to communicate with people. I've never taken a question or a call from anybody that I haven't replied and gotten the answer, gotten help that they needed, and called them back, went to see them. I've not had any complaints that I'm aware of. So in answer to that question, I'm here, I'm available, and I fully intend to continue being so.
All right. And we'll start with you on the next question. What can the city council do about the vacant historic buildings downtown as far as enforcing upkeep, etc.?
That's a really good question. The vacant buildings, it's my understanding that they're owned by a private individual. They aren't owned by the city. There are, if the person does not meet code, the code enforcer can be called. There are different things that we can do if the buildings are left derelict. But this all is a process, and the process has to be followed, and it's a legal process, and those the requirements have to be met before anything can be done. We certainly encourage owners to try to repair and fill the buildings, because that's the only way we're going to survive and thrive, if you will, is to have our buildings full. People will come and visit if we have them full. We'll have businesses where people can purchase things. So it's kind of a catch-22, but it's also something that I think that we all need to work on, all of us, business owners, property owners, and the council.
I agree with my opponent that there is a process to deal with buildings that are in disrepair, and that's a legal process and you can follow that. I think beyond that, I think the city can, again, encourage economic development so that those buildings become very attractive to people who want to come in and offer large sums of money to buy the building, restore the building, and then occupy the building with businesses that will be beneficial to our community. So I think it's an economic development issue as well as a legal and political issue.
Well, you kind of, for the first time, stole the words right out of my mouth tonight. Because that's exactly what it's about. It's about economic development. People will come in and buy a building, for example. I've got my own plans at some time, maybe to hopefully be able to buy something that I have an idea for that I think would be extremely successful down the road, 5, 8, 10 years from now. But with the hopes and all the glory that would come with it to make a successful business, and one thing happens or another and it doesn't happen. Now, are they taking care of their building, or are they not taking care of their building or their property? Two different animals. If they're not taking care of it, it's one thing, it's where legal comes in. If they're taking care of it, and economic development is a key essential in getting that building owner, the right companies in there or businesses in there to be able to, to lease to them, to build out for them. And it doesn't just come to buildings. We get stuck on the buildings all the time, and I understand that's the question. I love the buildings, believe me, I do. But it's the entire town. We need to start developing the fringe as well, and we really need to start focusing on that. But as far as the buildings, it's all about economic development. It's getting the people in line that want to lease your space or buy your facility.
I feel I can answer this question on two different levels. On one level, being the chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, it is a challenge between building owners and people who lease the buildings to keep them full. These buildings are aging structures, bricks and mortar. They're crumbling, they're hard to maintain. They truly are a labor of love. On the other level, I am a building owner downtown, and it is an empty structure at the moment. We are in the process of remodeling, restoring, refurbishing, trying to make it where it is a bright and shiny place for the community of Guthrie. It has been shuttered now way too long, in my opinion, but through family issues, we have not been able to get into it and get it opened as quickly as I like. But that is about to change. Back to the other issue of running and working from the Historic Preservation Commission. We want these buildings because this is, as Ms. Bothroyd said, this is our economic development. We use that. It is our engine, or one of the pistons in the engine that drives Guthrie. The architecture brings people to town. We want to keep them as pristine and as true to the way they were built as possible. That slows some people down. New people coming to town don't sometimes understand that. It is hard, it is expensive. These buildings are hard to insure. It would be nice if we could, just without any problem at all, but a lot of insurance companies, because they are old, the infrastructure, that just as the city, the infrastructure of the buildings themselves is very old, and it's hard sometimes to get the owners to commit to upgrading these buildings. Well, I guess I'm out of time, but I think that we do need to have an idea of how we are using this. It is an economic development engine, but it is difficult to get everybody in the same track. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got a balancing act here that is critical. We have got a wonderful history in Guthrie and a wonderful backdrop. The face of Guthrie is a wonderful backdrop that brings lots of things to Guthrie. What we need is we need to figure out how we meld that with our future and how we maintain it and yet keep the storefronts full, or at least have the plan that, as Ed was talking about, there are things that are going on behind the scenes. The storefront may be empty, but there's things going on behind the scenes that are developing. It may be 6 months, it may be a year, but the community needs to know that, so that they don't lose hope that as they drive down the street, they see just a bunch of empty storefronts. What they see is behind that window, there's a lot of things going on, and in 6 months, they're going to be opening up X. So we need to not lose faith, again, my optimism coming through, but we need to not lose faith in our community. And some of the historical perspective that we have is a major, major strength. Again, we need to be moving towards the future. Now, if the maintenance of a building is such that it's unsafe or it's not keeping up with historical requirements, then obviously the city needs to be impacting there. But we need to be working with the owners of those buildings and looking at all opportunities, not only to sell it to somebody else, but other development, grants that might be available. We need to be having that constant dialogue with the owners of our city buildings, or not our city buildings, but our buildings in our downtown area. We need to be having that dialogue with them and then sharing what those plans are with the community, so we can all be very proud of what Guthrie is now, what it has been, and where it's going?
Yeah, I think it's been addressed already tonight that these are two separate issues, a legal issue and an economic development issue. I think to take into account, can the city do better in economic development with tax incentives to new businesses, looking at existing businesses? I think the important key here is talking about existing businesses that are downtown, and are they getting the support they need just as much as the new development as well? I look here and I see Stacy staying with Rick's Chocolate tonight. You know, here's an existing company that's downtown. Is she getting the support that she needs from the city? Is she getting that mechanism? Are we doing everything that we can do as a city council, as a government, to be able to help small businesses like hers? You know, those are great questions. Are we at our best? No, we can always be better. Can we always be better at code enforcement? Absolutely. Whether it's a building downtown or a yard that needs to be taken care of, those are all issues that are on the legal side of the position, and then you have the economic side of it. I concur with everybody here that from an economic development standpoint, how do we continue to encourage growth downtown? It's a struggle. It's a constant battle, but we're fighting that battle. We want to incentivize new business. We want to incentivize new company startups, and how do we make sure that we have a conducive downtown for that? And are we doing the best that we can do to relate to property owners that are looking at rehabbing their property for something else? And so I agree that we all do need to be on the same page, whether it's through the chamber, through the CVB, through the city council, through the planning commission. Those are all important avenues that all need to be touching one another and to encourage both new development or new businesses and existing businesses that we're still reaching out to them as well. Thank you.
All right. We have received a lot of questions, and so we are going to go to the lightning round.
30 seconds.
Yeah, they were going to give you a minute. Do you want 30 seconds? I mean, we can do that.
Start with a minute.
We can do
I
it.
do want to say this, we need this bond issue because it's hot up here, we need some air conditioning.
We'll go a little bit longer, 20, 25 minutes, something like that. Get it through as many as we can, and then I haven't discussed this or told anyone. I'm just going to read the remaining questions and give you all your 2-minute closing and let you answer however you want, as well as you can in those. I'm sure by the time we get finished, we'll only have a few more. And so that way we can get through as many questions as humanly possible in your closing. So.
Well, what's our time limit? This meeting?
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
No, for tonight.
Do we have a kick-out time, an eviction time? Not yet.
Mike, are you serving breakfast?
So we're going to give you a minute, and we'll have a 30-second paddle, and at that over, I will let you finish a few seconds, but we're going to cut you off. So, all right. We'll start on with Mr. Ayers. You talk about your love for Guthrie and the business economic development. So how many of you shop downtown?
Well, my kids bought Wordles, if anybody knows that, just the other day at Rick's Coffee. And then I don't think they really knew what they were buying. Yeah, so we do shop downtown as much. You know, we shop as much as we can in the local community. You know, we're at the local homeland. We're at the local businesses. I haven't tried the new restaurant, Miss B's, is that it?
Mama B's.
Mama B's. I haven't tried it yet. I was sad to see Union Tacos go out. We certainly like that place as well. But am I done in my 30 seconds, or do I have a minute?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I was going to bring back a whole bunch of things from Prairie Gothic. And then my wife said, well, you know, we're kind of in the process of remodeling the house a little bit. So let's see what the whole landscape looks like before we bring some of the eclectic things from Prairie Gothic in. But I did have lunch at Staples the other day. And obviously, I mean, everybody here goes to Walmart for something, and Ace. is a mainstay when you're kind of do-it-yourselfer, which I think I am. My wife may disagree with that, but anyway, there are a number of things. Now, men's store, I didn't buy my boots in town, but if they're the gentleman next to Honor Park said he's going to take care of me when these run out.
Mr. Wood?
Short answer, absolutely. We support the local merchants and shop downtown with most all the shops in town we visit or go in and frequent to see who's there. The antique stores, the restaurants, the boutiques. My wife and I do a lot of business downtown. Having been a merchant downtown, we saw a lot of other people, local people and merchants in town. So absolutely, we support our downtown area and all the businesses in Guthrie for that matter.
Yeah, and we try to keep everything in town. As a matter of fact, we had, my wife and I said, hey, let's do Christmas in Guthrie this year. Try that. And we did. We did the whole thing. It was an AR-15 Christmas, wasn't it, honey? But that's what we did. We kept it in town. Whenever we do any type of construction stuff or anything that we're doing in our property, whether it's fence work or anything else, we keep it in town if we can. We always look in town first. We eat at all the restaurants, all of them. Actually, tried Mama B's the other day, but we patron all of the restaurants in town. The billfold I'm carrying in my pocket came from a shop in town, hence Carly's Christmas
Mr.
present
Guthrie?
came from a shop in town. So, I'm done.
Again, I'll be brief as much as humanly possible. I and my family shop in town.
Good answer. And I do as well. I shop at the boutique, I go to the restaurants, and what's more, when I have guests come in from out of state, the first thing we do is go to town. We go to the shops, we go to the restaurants, we never go to the city. So yes, absolutely.
This question is for the current members. What is your attendance record?
Me?
Yes.
Well, it's great. It can't be perfect. I had surgery last year, so I had to miss a little bit because of that. But I do not miss my committee meetings or the council meetings.
I guess I'm the only other acting member up here, so, my attendance record is probably, I've missed a few meetings last year. My travel schedule was fairly heavy. Prior years to that, I've been traveling probably in earnest for the last 2 years. Prior to that, my attendance was not nearly, my travel schedule didn't keep me away from meetings as much. So I think I addressed this issue earlier. I think it's a bit of a pointed question, but I appreciate the question nonetheless to answer. And, once again, like I stated, I'm committed to this community. Thanks.
Can I answer? As a former vice mayor, my attendance record was 98%.
This question, it says, if not answered in your opening statement, what are your work and education qualifications? I believe everyone answered that. What is your opinion of why our city manager is not here for this forum? So, Mr. Ayers, do you?
Well, it's a fair question. I think from her perspective, and from my perspective, I don't think the city manager needs to be involved in the political game. She's not there to make political moves. She's not there to sway people one way or the other in reference to the candidates. She will deal with a set of new bosses, if you will, once an election occurs. So I don't see, although it would be nice to have her here to see her, I don't think it's important that she's here to sway any type of measure with candidates for that nature of the political process.
Yeah, I have no clue as to what her schedule is. I mean, there could be very good reasons why she's not here. However, I do think a critical element is the questions. It's the questions that are being asked. Not necessarily the answers that are coming from Steve Gentling, but the questions that are coming from the citizen. And I think it's important that those be available to to all the council, whether they're running or not, and to the city manager. That's a critical element, I think, is the questions that you all are asking of us.
Actually, I agree both with Mr. Ayers and Mr. Getling that the city manager is not in the political forum. She is actually in the administrative end of the city, and hence probably this is not the place for her to be at the moment. It wouldn't be bad if she was, but it takes away from, say, the light of all the candidates up here on this forum, and she will hear everything that there is from Channel 20 and everything that's being recorded, so I feel that it's probably just as well that she is not here tonight.
Just so I have every word of the question, can you read it one more time in detail?
What is your opinion of why our city manager is not here for this forum?
Yeah, I can't formulate an opinion. I don't have one.
I can't get in the mind of the city manager. I don't know why she's not here. I don't think that it would be inappropriate for her to be here, and to hear what people have to say. I would hope that she would watch it, and I think it is somewhat telling that she isn't here.
I don't have an opinion per se. I'm sure she's watching it. She's very concerned about what goes on in the city and with the council. However, this is a political forum, meet the candidates, and she does not wish to be in the political aspect of it. She's an employee, she's an administrator, and whether she's here or not, I don't think that has anything to do with her or her abilities.
Our next question has to do with Banner School, and so I know that there is a lawsuit going on, so the current council members may not be able to answer as openly as they'd like. What are you going to do about Banner School? If it were on the east side, they would have already torn it down. And so I guess the question is, what are your opinions on Banner School? And Ms. Padgett?
Well, that is being pursued at the time, and it is something that I personally cannot address. It doesn't make any difference what side of town it's on.
It's a block from my home, and so I look at it every day. It's something that is of concern to me. Again, I think there's a legal process that has to be followed. I'm not a big fan. I'm sure most of you have heard, at least in passing, of a case called the Kilo case, where a city took private property basically to promote economic development, and that case was controversial. I think that's a controversial decision. It would not stand in Oklahoma with Oklahoma courts, but it is of concern to me since it's a block from my house.
Yeah, and from sitting in on the past councils and watching them, there is a legal proceeding going on. Why you can't answer on the council I don't see any closed-door reason why the existing council can't answer the question. But the actual question is, what would you do about it? Well, first you get the homeowner or the business owner in, and you try to have a heart-to-heart as a council with that person. And if that didn't work, then you just have to pursue legal avenues. There's just no way around it. But even if we're pursuing legal avenues, I don't see where that's closed door, and that can't be discussed. The fact of the matter is we're not. It's going to district court, is my understanding. So that's all I have to say about it right at this point.
Actually, I don't believe whether it's on the west side of Guthrie or on the east side of Guthrie makes any difference. I believe it has to do with the city and the property owner, and whatever the property owner is not able to do or not doing, and the city is having to abate that property, that is going to have to go through the legal channels. As it's been stated, the budget for abatement of derelict properties there's only a $50-some-odd-thousand in the budget, from what I understand, and it's going to cost more than that to abate that particular property, so it has to go through the courts, and that's the proper place for that to go through. But east side or west side really holds, makes no difference.
Totally agree. The geographics is a non-issue. I think the city had a number of dialogue with the property owner unsuccessfully, and then turned it over to the legal process to go through. And it will take place. It will take place. I think I'm glad to see that at least something has happened, and it's not just sitting there in limbo, that there is some action that is happening to take a building that's been damaged by fire and do something with it. It's unsafe and certainly unsightly.
Yeah, I'm going to wind up echoing several of the comments here tonight. That's exactly correct. The city did reach out to the property owner. They have been unsuccessful in getting resolution. This is the next step in that resolution is the courts. There's nothing secret or sacred about that. It's going to be a legal process. I'm certainly not going to form a legal opinion on it because I'm not qualified to do so. But in regards to the abatement, soon-to-be Councilman Wood is correct. The city does have about $50,000 in the budget. I'd like to thank John. You know, John's here tonight. He was the precursor to getting that established, and this would exhaust every bit of the dilapidated structure budget that we have. So that's why it is going through the court system.
We have about 5 to 10 minutes left on open questions, then we'll go with the closing statements. The next question, there are currently 7 bed and breakfasts in Guthrie. At least 3 are in danger of closing. Since there has been discussion of raising the hotel motel tax, where do you stand on this issue? Mr. Harris?
You know, I'm going, you know, this is maybe controversial to the bed and breakfast and hotel and motels here in town, but I think that that's something that we need to investigate. I think a hotel motel sales tax to some degree is a tax not on the local citizen, it's on a visitor. And that might not be the most pleasant thing for everybody to hear, but it is something that the council needs to investigate. We need to look at it. We've had this discussion before, and we heard from the bed and breakfast owners in the motel hotels that came to us, and we struck that decision down, and we didn't move forward with it. So we took it, it went through the process, we listened to the sides and decided not to do it. Do I think it's advisable to look at it again? I do. I think that the city has a position to look at all of those opportunities and how we move forward.
Yeah, I think as I'm sure everybody in this room knows, the taxes from the hotel motel tax goes to support the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which the mission of that group is to bring tourism into our community. So I think when we have dialogue with the bed and breakfast or hotel owners, the dialogue needs to be, do you see this, is there a value added here to you bringing more people in? We need to convince them that with the tax, here's where the money is spent, and it will bring more money, more visitors, more occupants into your bed and breakfast or your hotel. I think it's a critical part. I'm not so sure that people make a decision of renting a bed and breakfast or staying in a hotel here versus one in Edmond based upon what the tax is for the hotel motel. I think it's something that they don't even see. So I'm not so sure how much of a deterrent it is. I do think that we need to say, here's what the return on the value of that added tax is. Sorry.
When my wife and I travel, most every single community and motel or hotel we stay in, there is a hotel motel or entertainment tax associated with the bill when we check out. And that is to support the community and their economic development with whatever is going on or how they decide to use their money. Ours is pretty well relegated to Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, and that is a great thing. If we can continue to use that, and as everybody has been already saying, that if that stays that way, if it's a value to them, with them bringing, with the more rooms we have, with the festivals and things we have coming into town, the more people, it will really help that economic engine going. I feel that is probably a good thing for us to have, but we just have to be on board with the bed and breakfast people and make sure we're not overstepping our bounds or more so than what the economy can handle. So.
Yeah, I don't know the last time I looked at a place where I'm traveling, and again, since I schedule my travel, if I gotta go to a city or a town, I go. And I can't tell you the last time I said, well, I'm not gonna go stay there because the tax is too high. It's never happened. Austin, Texas, I travel to. You didn't, John did recently, you didn't ask one question about how much is your tax before you elected to take that room. And none of us do, so that's what has to happen. But I'm more, you know, and I know there's other questions, that's my response on it. But you know, you as a community are entitled to hear this council's opinion on issues, okay? Ms. Pageant just had one a minute ago she couldn't talk about, but Trey could. They're both on the council. What's up with that? Seriously. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys what you need to know moving forward. And that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to information. I'm gonna give you the information that you need to make a decision as a community. And that's how we're gonna go.
As a marketing scholar, one of the things that we talk about in marketing is something called customer lifetime value. And the idea is that it's easier to keep a customer than it is to go prospect for another customer. And I can tell you that you're absolutely right. Nobody comes to a town and says, I'm not going to come here because they investigated the hotel motel tax and found out that it was whatever percentage it is, and then they decided not to come. They find that out on the back end. And I think that what you can find is you'd find people that won't come back as a result of a tax that's too high. And as the bed and breakfast can attest, a lot of people do really question that. And I think that there are some differences when we say you go to Chicago or you go to LA or something like that and you don't really care about the tax. I just got back from a conference in New Orleans and the hotel motel tax was absolutely outrageous, I can tell you. I think there's a difference, as Mr. Ayers has pointed out, between New Orleans and Guthrie, Oklahoma, in terms of what people are willing to tolerate. And so I think that that's something that you need to think about.
Well, I have traveled extensively in the past. Never one time have I ever asked when I purchased items or stayed someplace, what's your tax? If I didn't like it, I would go someplace else. That's not true. I think that what we have to offer people, our festivals, our shops, the different things that we do would make people come, and they would pay whatever it costs to stay a night in a hotel, a bed and breakfast, eat at our restaurants. So I think I'm really not sure why that's such an issue.
All right. It is 8 o'clock. What I'm going to do is I want everybody's questions to be given to the council members and the people running for council. There are one here very specific directed to Mr. Bothroyd. I'll get to it. And in your closing statements, if you wish to address any of these, you're more than welcome to, or just have a closing statement of your own. The next question, why would you want to have a sales tax vote in the summer when people are out of town? Why not wait until September? Next question, should we fix the current ladder fire truck or spend $1 million to buy a new one? Do you think the city should be run like a business? Where do you see Guthrie in 5 years, retail and business-wise? What can we do to work toward a community center? If elected, what can you do to make Guthrie business-friendly? At this time, we have one person holding 3 very important positions in our city government. One is Director of Economic Development, one is Director of Tourism, and Office of City Planner. If elected to the council, will you exercise due diligence to recommend that qualified and experienced persons are in place in these positions? It's easy to badmouth the city in previous councils. I apologize. A successful candidate knows they are just one vote. To accomplish anything, you must work together. What will you do to foster a positive working relationship with the city manager and your fellow councilors? Can Guthrie grow and stay the quiet little town we love? Why would you not want Guthrie to grow? This is a statement. I turn this into a question if you wish. Top pay does not equate to more taxes, i.e. wages low. Which comes first, business or school tax? Guthrie, being an older tax-strapped population, is there any way to help the schools without making taxes grow? What is your opinion of the situation between the city government and the chamber? Does the city have any plans in the near future to hire a professional city planner? And Brian, is one of your main goals when elected to get rid of the city manager?
One of my main goals?
So that's the question. You can choose to answer it if you wish in your closing statement. I believe we were going to give them 2 minutes. Is that correct?
Well, wait, do I get to answer that question?
In your closing statement if you wish.
Okay.
So we can begin with Ms. Paget. A lot to go through. I just wanted every question to be out there.
There was a lot to go through. And I guess I would say this. My closing statement is, I love Guthrie. I love the people of Guthrie. I like the history. I like the buildings. I want to see it go into the future. I want us to have opportunities such as entertainment for people to want to come. I want the hotels full. I want the B&Bs full. I want the people that are merchants to sell their products and be happy with their business. There's just so much for Guthrie that I want, and I want to be a part of it very much. In regard to the questions that were asked, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. But if anybody specifically has a question that they feel like I could answer or that they want the answer to, call me. I'll be happy to speak with you. If I don't know the answer, I will get the answer. And if I'm elected as the representative for Ward 3, it would be my honor to serve the city of Guthrie and the people in it. Thank you.
There are just a plethora of questions there, and so I guess I would say that what I bring to the council, and I think what everybody up here would also echo, is that we want what's best for Guthrie and that we want to see Guthrie grow. I don't believe that there's anybody up here who wouldn't have an open door policy. That would certainly be my policy. I've put my email address and my number on my cards, and I'm more than happy to talk with anybody about my positions. If you have questions about substantive issues, I would be happy to answer those openly and honestly and forthright. And so I think I bring some unique aspects and some unique attributes to the position if I'm elected, and I would greatly appreciate your support. Thank you.
I think you're going to see some of these questions answered in the Guthrie News Leader, as we'll be responding to some of them. Some of those are here. As far as the chamber and city, I think that's strained, and I think that needs to be pulled back together somehow, some way. Well, I mean, we're a town here. We're kids. We're not going to let our kids be strained for very long before we intervene. So we've got to fix that. Can you run it like a business? We're a zero-profit center, so no, you can't run it like a business. But you can have sound, hardcore business acumen, and the council can be run like a business. Okay, as far as how much time you're putting in, the type of decisions you're making, how you're looking at things, what does this budget really mean? If you don't know, why are you on the board and why are you voting? Okay, you should really be able to look into these numbers and know what they are and what the impact is. We ought to be able to look at a contract and say, okay, this one word screws us down the road. Just one word. Okay, and I've seen them. I've seen where they don't have the words in it. Screws us down the road. We can talk about that one-on-one. 210-7100 is my number. I always give it. I'll always give it. On every card I pass out, it's there. 210-7100. As far as city manager, I inspect what I expect. That's the bottom line. And take that however you want. I inspect everything that I expect, whether it's with my kids or whether it's with myself or my managers, whether they're regional, sales, regular local managers. I inspect what I expect, and that's never going to change with me. What you see with me is what you get on that side of it. I'm not a hire and fire type guy. I don't just come in with a big swinging acts on the deal, but I will inspect what I expect. The schools and the tax, we need to leave the school alone, and the school needs to be able to pass a bond, okay? Again, we probably do need some type of tax, but we need to get off of that right now. I was so disappointed the other day, all of a sudden,
Mr.
here we are.
Bothroyd? I'm sorry.
I first want to start out by saying I feel privileged that I'm able to sit on this council and that I'll be able to help and be and work for the citizens of Guthrie and my ward. I want to have an open policy. I will have a phone number. I do not have one yet. I want a dedicated phone number for anybody who wants to call me. I will have one. You will all know what that is, so I can respond to anybody's questions. Yes, we need a new fire truck. We don't need to repair an old one. A community center would be nice, but that will have to come down the road, I feel, also once we start getting more revenue and more economy in the budget. Between the sales tax and the school, I'm with Mr. Bothroyd. I think the sales tax needs to be pushed off. If there is going to be one, we need to pass this bond election first. It has to go through. We don't need them at the same time. That just turns people off. I feel it's too close together. We've got to have a bond issue to make our schools. Once we have our schools, then we can start growing the economy. Once we grow the economy, the tax dollars will come and the engine really starts to running. It is going to be hard for the older part of the community. We are a bedroom community, but we all have to dig deep for our future, for Guthrie. Again, in the future, a city planner actual professional city planner would be great. Again, I think that is a very good idea. I want to listen to the constituents. I want to listen to also the other people on the council. We all have to get along. We need to learn and work together, but we do need to go over all the parts and pieces. We can run the council as a business. City government is a little different than, say, our own personal work, but I think we can all make it work together. Thank you.
Well, I'm into building up, not tearing down. Don't have a personal agenda. My agenda is Guthrie. And I think, as everybody up here, we are willing to step forward and spend a significant amount of time and represent you in our community. A number of things that have been touched on. Clearly, I hope it's not an either-or on the sales tax or the school bond, but if it is, clearly, the school bond is the priority, in my mind. In my mind. There ought to be a separation between when those two things come before a vote, and that separation is necessary because we need to educate the citizens of Guthrie as to what each one does, and not have it all at the same time and somewhat convoluted and competing. They should not be competing. The school bond issue should be a priority. As far as number of people wearing different hats, I don't know. I do know that we as the council should set expectations, and we should set measures, and then we should see how you're comparing with those measures. And if you're not, what can we do to help you meet those measures, those expectations? That's what we need to do. If that takes additional people or only wearing one hat instead of 5 or 6, then we need to try to help make that happen. Not tear people down, but build them up. I'm a facilitator. I'm a relationship builder. Said that in my opening statements. I think we need to get everybody in our community online working the same way, whether that's a community center. I mean, what a wonderful thing the printing museum could be if it could be a community center. Who do we get to do that? Who do we get to do that? Well, maybe there's
Mr.
somebody
Gentling?
out there. I'm optimistic that there is. I'm optimistic that we
Mr.
can make
Gentling?
it happen. And I'm out of time.
Well, first, I want to thank the community as a whole for 10 great years. No matter what happens, whatever happens within this race, I had 2 years on the planning commission, 8 years as a city councilman for Ward 1, and I'm honored to have been able to serve. I'm honored to have been that representative, and I take no shame in saying that I'm proud of it, because I'm proud of this community. Like Steve and like others here tonight, there's no agenda. The agenda is Guthrie, just like Steve noted. And we could argue all day about that together and still not get in a fight about it. That's the truth be known. We both believe in this city. As far as some of the issues that we touched on, I know we touched on a lot of the issues tonight. Brian brought up a good point that the Guthrie News Leader will have an article that each one of us will be responding to. I encourage people to look at that as well. Once again, I concur to the idea that the bond issue is an important issue. Communities grow by strong schools, and it's so important that this community get behind its school system and support it, because it only means good things for the citizens of the community and everyone around. Again, we all have a love of the city of Guthrie, or we wouldn't be sitting up here tonight sweating under a hot light. It's important to us, and I think one last thing, and I'll finish up. Growing correctly is important. I hear a lot of comments. A lot of times people will hit me up and they'll say, "Hey, we don't want to be like Edmond." Well, I can assure you, in the next 5 years, we're not going to be the size of Edmond. It's not going to happen. But can we grow correctly? Absolutely. We can put the measures in place and do those things to grow correctly. It's in working together. That's exactly the name of the game. Continue to work together. Continue to reach out to one another. It's an exciting time. It's always an exciting time when we get to this time of year. But most importantly, get out and vote. I encourage folks to get out there and do it. I can say get out and vote one more time.
What are we going to do?
Honest to goodness, get out and vote. And I think that's how you show your commitment to your community and to your representatives. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us. We'd like to thank Mr. Ayers, Mr. Yentling, Mr. Wood, Mr. Bothroyd, Mr. Aguirre, and Ms. Paget for joining us, and thank you all for coming out with your questions. You are excused.